back now with White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby. Good to have you here. A lot to talk to. I want to start right where Senator Warner left off. Does the White House want to share more information about these classified materials? He says it doesn't pass the smell test.
We're fully cooperating with the Justice Department on this ongoing investigation, Margaret. That's got to be the focus, making sure that we preserve that process, and so that's what we're doing. And of course, at the appropriate time and in the appropriate setting, we certainly understand the desire by members of Congress to know more, to see more. But we've got to make sure that we are full cooperation with the Justice Department on this right now.
As for what Senator Warner was laying out there and giving the White House the tools to make a call on TikTok, this has been going on for years now.
Yeah.
The review of whether to allow it. If it's a national security threat, doesn't there need to be swift action rather than more debate?
Well, there's an ongoing, as you know, in review by the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. Ongoing review. It's an independent review. We want to respect that process. But look, in the meantime, the president's already said we absolutely have national security concerns about that application, and he's banned it from government devices. We don't want to get ahead of this review. We have endorsed the Restrict Act, pending legislation. We'd love to see that passed by the Congress so that the president can have additional tools and authorities.
We showed a video in that last segment of the president on TikTok from a video shot by a celebrity inside the White House. So for the 150 million Americans who still use this app, how do you say to them, sorry, we're going to take it away?
It's not on
it
government.
Looks hypocritical.
It's not on government devices. We do have legitimate national security concerns. We have legitimate national security concerns over TikTok.
It's a useful political platform.
I just would tell you that, again, that our concerns on the national security front are valid. We've banned it on all government devices. We got to get through this CFIUS review to see what the outcome is there before we move ahead. In the meantime, again, the president welcomes congressional action on the Restrict Act.
Well, we'll see when it moves and what the action will be, ban or for sale. Let's take a break. I want to talk to you about Syria and Iran in a moment. Okay. We return to our conversation with National Security Council spokesman John Kirby. I want to ask you about what has been happening in Syria with these attacks on U.S. forces there. We had this deadly attack on Thursday by these Iran-aligned groups, a U.S. retaliation, and then 3 other known attacks on U.S. positions. President Biden said he would act if U.S. troops were under fire. Is the U.S. going to retaliate?
We have acted with U.S. troops under fire. First of all, condolences. Our condolences to the family of the U.S. contractor, U.S. citizen who was killed. That's devastating news that no family wants to ever get, and we certainly grieve with them. And we're obviously hoping for a speedy recovery for those who are still suffering from the wounds. But this was a serious attack by these militant groups. And the president retaliated swiftly and boldly, significantly, to deal with that. You're right. There were some follow-up response.
At least three
from these militant groups. Not a lot of damage caused, although the one service member was injured. So we're going to see where this goes. But the president in Ottawa made it very clear that we're going to always act to defend our troops and our facilities. And here's what's not going to change, Margaret. The mission in ISIS is not going to change. We have under 1,000 troops in Syria that are going after that network, which is, while greatly diminished, still viable and still critical. So we're going to stay at that task.
The president is committed to keeping those 900 or so troops in Syria.
Absolutely.
The head of Central Command testified earlier in the week there have been 78 attacks by Iran-backed groups against Americans since 2021. That was before these recent strikes. They don't appear to be deterred by these verbal threats or even the retaliation.
That's why, again, the president acted so swiftly and boldly here in this particular case. And I certainly am not going to rule out the potential for additional U.S. action if the president deems it appropriate and necessary to continue to protect our troops and our facilities. We're going to keep at that. And that message is sent loud and clear. Now, again, these Iran-backed militant groups, they're going to have decisions that they're going to have to make. They need to know. And we demonstrated it here this week that the United States will always act decisively to protect our people.
But to cause American fatality, did this Iranian-backed group know that parts of the radar defense system were not fully operational at the time they carried out that drone attack?
We've seen no indication that they had that kind of knowledge. And in the past, on some of these other attacks, I mean, they have used similar capabilities to go after our troops and our facilities there in Syria. So there's no indication that they would have had knowledge of that.
Vladimir Putin said yesterday that Russia struck a deal with Belarus to station tactical nuclear weapons on its territories by July 1st. And then by about April 3rd, he says they're transferring ballistic missile systems and beginning training. Is he serious? Is this just more saber rattling?
We're just going to have to watch and see where this one goes, Margaret.
No movement so far.
We have not seen any indication that he's made good on this pledge or moved any nuclear weapons around. We've in fact seen no indication that he has any intention to use nuclear weapons, period, inside Ukraine. Obviously, we would agree that no nuclear war should be fought. No nuclear war could be won. Clearly, that would cross a major threshold. I would also tell you that as we monitor this, and we monitor it every day, you have to, with the rhetoric coming out of Moscow, and with rhetoric that's been coming out since the beginning of the war, that we've seen nothing that would cause us to change our own strategic deterrent posture.
Why would he do this now?
You'd have to ask Mr. Putin. I can't speak to that. I think in some of the Russian media reports, they linked it to claims that the United Kingdom was going to provide depleted uranium rounds. There is no radioactive threat from depleted uranium rounds. They're common on the battlefield. Even Russia uses similar rounds. So if that is in fact the justification, it's a stake through a straw man. There's no radioactivity concerns with that.
Here in the United States, Taiwan's president is scheduled to begin a visit later this week in New York and then next week out in California. Republican lawmakers will visit with her. Has the White House asked Democrats not to do so? There's
been no request by the White House to Democrats not to meet with President Tsai. The members of Congress have every right to manage their agenda and their meeting schedule as they seem fit. I think it's important to remember what this is. This is a transit. They're normal. She's done 6 before.
It's a long transit.
She's done 6 before.
Tension with China's never been this high.
There we are. And look, we understand that. And the president has said clearly he believes it's important to keep the lines of communication with China open. He wants to have another conversation with President Xi. We'll move in that direction. But these transits are normal, particularly for this particular president.
No date for that call with President Xi yet. Thank you so much
My pleasure.
for joining us here. We'll be right back.